On the 18th of April 2024, a UN Security Council resolution that recommended that Palestine be admitted for membership to the UN was vetoed. On the 10th of May 2024, the General Assembly took up a resolution expressing support for Palestine's membership in the United Nations and recommended that the Security Council reconsider this matter favorably. Singapore voted in favor of this resolution after very careful consideration, and this reflected our hope to encourage both Israel and Palestine to resume direct negotiations towards a two-state solution at a time when, in fact, the prospects for such negotiations were increasingly bleak. We therefore decided to join the majority of the international community in supporting this resolution, which is also in line with our long-standing support for the principles of international law and for the implementation of all relevant UN Security Council resolutions. Our vote at the United Nations General Assembly means that Singapore is prepared in principle to recognize the state of Palestine. We will make this move at an appropriate time. Our key consideration is that such a move on our part should help progress towards peace and a negotiated two-state solution. In particular, there will need to be an effective Palestinian government that accepts Israel's right to exist and categorically rejects terrorism. Both sides have legitimate rights, and both peoples have a right to live in peace and dignity within secure borders. We urge both sides to seize the moment to take steps towards a long-lasting peace and to put an end to the suffering that has gone on for far too long. Ultimately, Israelis and Palestinians will need to exercise leadership and will have to work together to forge a better future for their peoples.
I thank the Minister for his answers. So what would be the thresholds that need to be crossed for Singapore to recognize the state of Palestine? And specifically, would it happen only when a two-state solution is negotiated and concluded? If so, this is no different from Singapore's previous position. Secondly, does the Minister agree that the formal recognition of Palestine statehood by Singapore and other countries which have close relations with Israel, like Spain, Ireland, and Norway, would be a significant statement of unequivocal support for a two-state solution and will give impetus to advancing the moribund peace process? And lastly, would the Minister agree that the recognition of Palestine would allow for negotiations to proceed on a more equal footing between two recognized states, the State of Israel and the State of Palestine, rather than one state negotiating with a non-state entity?
Minister Balakrishnan.
I thank Mr. Giam for the question. In fact, I thank him for accompanying me on my trip to the Middle East in March. Let me reiterate that we are prepared, in principle, to recognize Palestine. And the principal consideration is, when we do this, will it be helpful or will it hinder the progress towards peace? And which in turn, in fact, depends on negotiations between both sides. But a key point, you mentioned equal. But a key point and a key question which every single country that is pondering this question has to decide: is there an effective Palestinian government or leadership who represents all Palestinians, which has effective control over, at a minimum, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and has the mandate, has the authority to negotiate with the Israelis on behalf of the Palestinians. And quite frankly, I think every other country in the world will have to grapple with this same question, but will arrive at an answer probably at a different threshold or a different point in time. And frankly, it will also depend on their own domestic circumstances. So I would say that we are not going to lock ourselves in to a specific time or to whether or not other countries have made decisions in parallel on the same fundamental question. All right, so let me summarize again. We are prepared in principle to recognize the state of Palestine, but we want to do so at the appropriate moment when it is helpful, and you must have an effective Palestinian government, and one, which as I alluded to earlier, which must categorically renounce terrorism and must accept the right of Israel to exist. Within those parameters, I look forward to progress. I don't know exactly when that will happen, but I certainly look forward to progress.